Everybody's individual, and just there are some similarities. So I used the tools that I had been taught, and I had to get more. I had to say, right, it's time for me to really sort this stuff out. I knew I needed to delve into these symptoms. Maybe that's some of my training helped me there to not
Mm,
be not be as frightened of my
mhm.
body, and to not be as frightened of this darkness that was sort of around my mind. My past experiences that I had thought I'd resolved that were difficult, right? The difficult things came up and they said, "We're still here. You haven't actually dealt with them." It was like a dark night of the soul, but I knew I had to go in there and face them and get gritty.
Welcome to episode 9, a deep dive into the transformative healing journey of perimenopause and menopause with the insightful Kim Holmes. Kim has been devoted to the practice of therapeutic yoga for addiction and trauma since 2014 and has evolved into a dedicated yoga therapist specializing in women's health with a primary focus on perimenopause. Kim's approach integrates somatic and embodiment techniques, drawing from yogic principles and philosophy, all while processing a profound understanding of empowerment through cellular awakening and neuroplasticity. Kim facilitates groups, circles, and coaching programs and provides personalized one-on-one guidance to her clients. She serves as the host and creative force behind the Healing Power of Menopause Global Summit, a virtual gathering of 24 experts and specialists in various areas of women's health. Kim is a visionary founder of her venture, Soul-Led Centering. And you can find Kim with her private Facebook group, Reclaiming Power, Perimenopause and Beyond. And you can also find her on Instagram as soul_led_centering. Kim is so raw and so real. You're just going to be blown away. This is such a great episode, and I am so grateful that Kim allowed herself to be raw, real, relevant, and vulnerable. Let's take a listen.
Good morning for me, Kim. Good afternoon for you. Kim
It is
joining
afternoon,
me.
yeah.
It is joining me from London, in the beautiful
Mhm.
UK. I'm so grateful to have you on the show, and the work that you're doing in the menopause, perimenopause community is pretty profound. This is why I reached out to you, because it's your healing power of menopause global summit. It's when I was first introduced to you to the summits, and you as host, I thought, this is profound work that Kim is doing. I must speak with her. And here you are. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for asking me. I love this networking that's happening. It's amazing.
It is, we live in a beautiful time where we can do this. And first off the bat, what has inspired you to pursue this field of work that you're in?
I delved into women's health via yoga therapy. One of my teachers is Uma Dinsmore-Tuli, who she was on the summit.
Yeah.
But it just all came together with everything that I've studied and been working on, really. Just had real eye openers through my own healing journey and through perimenopause, I guess. Stuff that I hadn't been taught about by my mother, things I'd never heard spoken about the menopausal experience, about that awareness of how women's health has been sort of sorely neglected
Right.
and misinterpreted, and how we've lost trust in our bodies and our wisdom and that comes with health. It just really opened my eyes to, honestly, to my own experience of thinking that I was knowledgeable, independent, and a feminist. And I actually had to kind of had take a little bit of a relook at that and think, oh, actually, the things I thought I knew didn't always relate to how I treated myself, my bodies, or how my friends, what their experience has been in the world, at work, through
Yeah.
menstruation, through childbirth.
Right. It's funny how we hit this transition, that phase, and suddenly we have to take a real deep inward look, which is what yoga is all about, the introspective work. But suddenly it's right at our doorstep, and if we don't deal with it, our lives can be quite miserable. And that's not the life that we want to live. We don't want to live our mother's life, right? What is it, the most significant teachings? Let's talk about your offerings and how you are working with women to help them make that transformative breakthrough, if you will, with their perimenopause experience.
Yeah, well, as I said, I mean, just on my experience, some of the things that really came up for me during perimenopause, apart from one, lots of us tend to go to the doctors and don't get any answers. So that's something that I first work with women through. Some of the answers none of us know because it's all very new. And unfortunately, we haven't had the care that goes with all sorts of phases of women's health. So it's kind of going to the doctors, not getting any answers that I wanted, or not that I wanted, but that just not getting any answers, not getting any clarity, and sort of going into this phase without any support. And women come to me similar to what I went through, of the body kind of feeling like you've been betrayed by your body. Why is this? Things are hurting. I feel like I'm in this sort of darkness here. So it was mental and physical, and I found that things were coming up for me that I thought I had dealt with. And so these are similarities that my clients seem to say to me as well. There are some similar things. Everybody's individual, and just there are some similarities. So I used the tools that I had been taught, and I had to get more. I had to say, right, it's time for me to really sort this stuff out. I knew I needed to delve into these symptoms. Maybe that's some of my training helped me there, to not be not be as frightened of my body, and to not be as frightened of this darkness that was sort of around my mind. My past experiences that I had thought I'd resolved, that were difficult, right? The difficult things came up, and they said, we're still here. You haven't actually dealt with them. So I knew that it was like a dark night of the soul, but I knew I had to go in there and face them and get gritty. To be honest, some of the pandemic actually helped because I could rest. I could really rest during that time. And I had lots of time to contemplate and have some online therapy and get support. So I think that's when I'm working with people now, there's a lot of compassion there because I went through this time myself, right? And so my offerings, back to your question, I've worked with women through the symptoms of hot flushes, of physical discomfort. It boils down to resolving these past issues. And so what I have to be careful is that people can sometimes think you're going to drag this stuff up again. It's not like that. It's a beautiful sort of sacred space of presencing what is arising in the now, to really begin to gain trust in ourselves, in our bodies, in our own wisdom. And that's really the result, is this deep, deep grounding, this deep connection, the way of regaining confidence by having a more intimate relationship with our physical structure and our energy and some of the intergenerational stuff that's present. I hope that's not too complicated.
Oh my goodness. I mean, there's so much here, so many good little things that you have said here, and I've got to write them down. They're so good. But there's two that really hit home. I've said this before. I share this with women all the time. And when they hear that, they take a step back, and I think it's almost a relief for them. Ayurvedic practitioners and philosophy deems the transition as the time of the great reveal, revealing to us that, hey, girl, you got some past garbage. You got to clean it up, right? And then the second one is that Ayurveda says it's the age of wisdom, and how beautifully you just expressed that. Have that wisdom to reclaim that beautiful, intimate relationship with who we are with our bodies. I love what you have in your last email. You said perimenopause induces a myriad of physical, emotional, and mental changes and challenges. While it's a natural progression towards the next exciting chapter, it is also a ripe and potent opportunity to become the person you came here to be, make powerful choices, and by living the life you love, and causes a ripple effect of humanity on the planet. Oh, so beautiful. Kim, you express it lovingly in such a way that it lifts women up. It's a beautiful time, and you have a duty to uphold it and share.
I think in a bigger picture, that I believe that we're in a time where menopausal women, the postmenopausal person as well has a real role in the world, because we've never really been at this point before where there's been this big discussion about the menopausal transition. And we're finding out that, unlike many other creatures on the earth, we have menopause for a reason. We have a role, a specific role given to us in our postmenopausal life. Contrary to the scaremongering, often scaremongering, that we're kind of on the shelf, we're all going to have bone issues and we're not fertile anymore. Actually, no, we can be really healthy. We can have a lot of clarity. And I think we don't really know yet what our purpose really is, but I feel like there's a way that we are vigilant. There's a way that we can care and work sort of at the same time. There's something really powerful about the postmenopausal woman. And I think that we have a role at this time as the planet is really suffering and humanity is at a crisis point. But that's my bigger picture. And that's why I work with collective healing as well, because I think when we all come together, we share our stories, and collective healing helps stop the patterns repeating of the past. And that's the most important thing that we need to do right now. We've got to stop these patterns repeating. And that's kind of my standpoint with menopause. And I know that we're doing global things as well. And there's lots of other parts to where we're at globally and planetarily.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the stand I make, is with the healing part of perimenopause, in order to have this presence of the postmenopausal person in the world, because I believe that's where the ripple effect happens.
I guess you could say it's akin to the caterpillar has to go through the uncomfortable stages of being a caterpillar and all of its ugliness, and then cocoon itself into this loving, beautiful butterfly that we can now say is post-menopause years, and the wise woman arises. I'm absolutely on board with your standpoint on that. I often wonder, are women ourselves responsible and should shoulder some of the burden of creating that negative construct around menopause? Because we've been raised as women with this narrative that we're out there to compete, not collaborate. And it's only now, recently, maybe in the last 10 years or 5 years, that opportunities to collaborate, COVID being one of those invitations to collaborate, because we see our lives live out on Zoom. But it's like this, suddenly there's this permission and awakening to women have always been supposed to collaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, another reason why I was so passionate about working in this field is that I was in lots of groups and hearing so many voices on the TV, and being part of groups that were perimenopause focus and menopause focus. And it sounded very negative and it sounded very scary, and it was just a problem. And I felt as well that we were still, and we were doing it to ourselves, we were still kind of thinking that we needed to stay young. And even with the new findings about HRT, hormone therapy, which might be a better way of framing it, rather than replacement therapy. We don't have to replace our hormones.
Thank you. Yes, agree.
Hormone therapy, it was still kind of like, you can stay young. You don't have to go through this. Either way, with HRT, if somebody needs it, they need it. Absolutely. Fabulous. But you can't get hold of it in the UK anymore because everybody wants it. And I think it is also a sort of an avoidance of that. We're still not embracing getting older, and we've been misguided. You talked about competition. Well, in some ways there is a little bit of a competition with women in a natural sense, because of estrogen and needing to find partners and have babies. However, we haven't been brought up to understand femininity and women's needs. I mean, mothers, how often did you go look at her, who does she think she is? And can't stand her, and that's become it's ingrained in us. And as you say, the natural way for women to be is in collaboration, is co-creation. We would have worked around our cycles. We would have supported each other. So if one woman has a very long period and lots of pain, that another woman would have been there to help out, and vice versa, and with children and all sorts of areas of our lives, we would have collaborated. So we go into menopause, perimenopause, depleted because of all of those reasons.
Yes, so true. My goodness. I want to talk a lot more on the concept of this being more of a global collaboration. But I do want to talk about some of your unique teachings, because I think this is quite incredible. I'd like to unpack this a little bit. When you work with the embodiment of the person, and some of your work, as you define, refresh and rejuvenate their cellular structure, which is, I love how you say it, a non-negotiable for a healthy immune system. So tell me about this work that you offer.
Yeah, so it's quite inspired by the teachings of Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen. I mean,
Okay.
she's not the only one, but that's who I just love. And all my teachers, I trust them. They're all embodiment teachers as well. So there's no kind of only therapy in the mind, only therapy in the head, or just talking. It's always about going deeper and finding what's going on in my body, what are the symptoms, where are these pains coming from, can I tap into my emotional levels, the pains, can I begin to really identify where my body is feeling emotions, what's happening in my brain when these emotions appear in different areas of my body, what's my energy doing. It's just been really intimate with the body. There's a sort of saying, if you're not intimate with that part of the body, if your awareness isn't in relationship, then the
Yeah.
body doesn't know it's alive. So I guess that's a
Yes.
really basic way of talking about how we can become really intimate on a cellular level, and with our internal organs, and with our glandular system,
Right.
with the endocrine system, as you
Right.
were talking about that. How can we respond to our bodies in that much deeper way? And it's not as complicated as it sounds. When you've got a good facilitator to help, just by bringing awareness to different parts of the body, I think really opens up and helps our brain function, it helps our mobility,
Mhm.
it helps this change from the brain wanting the sex organs to produce
Yeah.
hormones.
Right.
It gives them space, and it allows for a deeper healing without having to necessarily take medication or hormone therapy, which, and as I say, I know it's the right thing for some people. And this the menopausal symptoms are a great time to go deeper into the body. And cellular
Mhm.
awakening helps us with fluidity, mobility, comfort. And as I say, I think it helps with the balance, to encourage, because the thing is that, we have lots of other hormones, we have lots of other bodily functions that come into
Mhm.
play
Right.
when the sex organs, the sex hormones, when they change, or they decline. It's not like they fall off a cliff and we're deficient. We're not deficient, we're just different at this time. And so working in a more holistic way with the body allows these other mechanisms, these other hormonal functions, these other chemicals in our body to come forward, to allow us to be the
Yes.
postmenopausal being.
Mhm.
Well, we just
So
concentrate on these one thing. We only hear your estrogen, progesterone, your testosterone, and loss of libido, drying up, brittle bone, anxiety, mood swings, da 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 da. That's what we're focusing on. And so that's what's getting the attention. And the more we say it, the more that becomes the important, loudest voices, right?
yeah,
And
exactly.
one of the speakers, Caroline Gaskin, she spoke about this beautifully on the summit, about the archetype of hormones. We get to know the characteristics of our new hormonal body. What are my hormones now? What's coming into play now? There are a lot of other biological resources that our body has got. So I am completely convinced that there is a massive role for the postmenopausal person, and we are not deficient in any
Beautiful.
way whatsoever, because we actually live longer than men. So why would we live longer than men if menopause was such a huge problem?
Exactly. It's so amazing. Okay, just quickly. Say if I were to come to you for the first time and I wanted to do some yoga practice to relieve some of my symptoms, but I don't know what they are, and I come to your class and we're going through the postures, you can explain that some more. And then I start feeling pain. Let's say I feel pain in my shoulder and I grimace and I tighten up, and you notice this. And you're like, oh, there's something here. So what would you then do for me to guide me through and welcome that pain and then feel the ease to let it go?
We just begin to have a conversation with the pain. How do you describe it now? Like, what's happening now? Like, characteristics would you give it? What is it saying? How different is it from the other side? What's the other side saying, or another part of the body saying? What color, what texture? We start to get into the body in that way. We really converse with it. We really give it space. I see the body as a community of support for each other. Or sometimes
Right.
something needs a bit of attention. Maybe there's a spiritual or a past event that sometimes we look back at the generations. We see the generations sort of here on either side. There's going to be different characteristics. So mother, father, grandparents, great grandparents, and you don't. And if you haven't been raised by your biological family, then we still just play with those characteristics. What do you feel? What do you don't? What do you not feel? And then we may do movement. We might not do movement. What I've found is that my practice had to really change through perimenopause. I didn't want to do all this jumping around. I didn't want to do normal yoga practice. I found a real intimate, a real nice chanting sounds.
Yes.
Slow manipulation, pelvic work, womb healing. As I say, working with what's really going on with the cells and the movement, the spirals, the comings and going of the lymph system. What's really happening there? Let's work with that. And quite often there's a way of assisting the nervous system, of course, because the nervous system always has to come into question here, the nervous system, and ways of changing the pattern so that our brains often go pain, 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 pain. The loudest, again, the loudest voice always gets the attention, and that creates a pattern within itself. So sometimes by unraveling that pattern through the body, sometimes it releases pain. A lot of my clients find pain relief instantly through these practices. Sometimes we find that there's some incidences that happened in childhood, and sometimes it's work. Quite often it's work, because when people come in with perimenopause, they feel betrayed, and they've really tried hard in these workplaces or corporate workplace, and they feel like it's been really detrimental to their bodies and their minds. Because we didn't know any different. We thought we were trying, didn't we? We're trying, doing, and we didn't realise that the world isn't really made for us, and some people were not going to really sometimes survive too well. Or maybe we did. Maybe we really thrived and earned lots of money, and still there are some real wounds there when we come into menopause. That's what I found with my clients. Have these experiences at work.
I'm glad you touched on that too. I think corporate life, because women, there's some high achieving women out there, highly acclaimed there, and they're holding very important jobs, corporate jobs, or just going to work to support their families, and they want to be in the workplace because they love what they do. And I've seen it so many times, and I'm going to admit I'm one of them too. The transition started happening, and I just felt different in my corporate workplace, and you feel like, oh my God, all eyes are on me, but what's the matter with me? And you're trying to make up excuses. This is where that competitive mindset comes into play. And you're looking for your allies in the workplace, maybe someone you can just talk to over in the lunchroom or over the water cooler, really, to say, hey, is this normal? But we don't, because we don't want to look weak. And then we just add another layer of complication and stress on top of what is already happening with the natural hormonal stresses on the body. Cortisol levels start to spike. Then there's a cascading effect. For me, it was my gut health further exacerbated. And then when you do find those confidants that you can share information with, then there's that feeling of guilt afterwards, going, oh my God, I just revealed myself to my colleagues, and now I look weak. And then that happens all over again. And it just is this vicious cycle. And I'm really thinking that there's so much more work. I feel there's a lot more work to be done in the corporate organizations. They talk about team building all the time and talk about brand identity all the time. But what about the work, the deeper work? there's such a large percentage of women who are in the perimenopausal phases there that hold those jobs in the workplace. Why would we just abandon them and not support them when they have so much wisdom to offer? So I'm really feeling that there's a real big element to crack open and start working with these larger corporations to empower women to go through the transition naturally, but feel completely safe and supported in that journey. Yeah.
I think that it exacerbates the issues, you know, it exacerbates anxiety, exacerbates hot flushes, exacerbates brain fog in those situations. It doesn't allow for, you know, the time and space to hold a woman and allow for her and really honor her for where she's at and where she's been and where she's got to. The work of Joyce Harper educating about menopause in the workplace, but not in a kind of almost infantilizing again kind of attitudes about it and how we support them, and it's all a bit gimmicky, but they're doing some really important work on how to hold the space for a woman going through the menopausal transition and saying to employers, you want to be careful because these women are going to be your best asset. If you support them through this time now, they're like amazing.
I know
near
we're
there
just
yet.
scratching, just barely scratching. I think we have to convince the woman first before we can go deeper into the larger corporations, because if we have them on board, then they'll feel, yes, now come on in and let's just do some work, and this environment supports me. So the work on the woman and probably her family too is first and foremost job number one.
That's really interesting. Yeah, there's a disconnect with thinking that what we're talking about should be a priority. It's not in the minds that, oh, hey, you got to look at your energy. You got to become more intimate with your inner body and on a cellular level. You're like, what?
We're getting there, but slowly but surely. And some of the ways that we are getting there is the work that you do with the Healing Power of Menopause Global Summit. I said I was going to get back to that. I participate in some of those lectures, and I wish I had stayed on for longer. Tell me a little bit more about that and how our listeners can learn about engaging with this in future summits.
It was amazing. It's just an amazing thing to have founded. I literally just spoke to a few people and then it just spiraled, and we have 24 speakers on there of all different specialities. They're experts in lots of different fields. Obviously the theme is healing through menopause, so I think they identified, you know, that is the reason to sort of come forward. There's quite a holistic theme to it, and of course there's lots of education about hormone therapy as well. But the amazing thing was how for me it was really comforting, because oh my god, there's all these women out there doing this stuff, and I felt really supported. And I think by talking and by sharing our stories, we just feel we're not kind of going a bit mad with new thoughts we're having about menopause, you know, and like going, hang on a minute, there's something more to this here. So it was really comforting to hear, and such amazing help for people. The summit is still there, and
Good.
you know, I can give you all a code to get it at the pre-summit, the early bird price, if that would be something that we could offer.
Excellent.
To give people an opportunity just to have it and look at it, put your headphones on or go for a walk with it on. Just so much important information in that, on a physical, biological, real practical levels, what can be done at work, and on a more holistic diet, nutrition, ADHD. We spoke about ADHD and perimenopause. We spoke about sort of the power of how we can become really present at this time, how people shared their experiences of that real breakdown time they had and where they've come from since then, and how to regain your confidence, libido. You know, there's just, I think it just covers everything, I'll be honest.
It does. Yeah, it really does. Okay, that's beautiful.
Stuff on nutrition as well. Yeah.
I'm a firm believer on the 4 pillars being nutrition, exercise or movement of the body, sleep management, and stress reduction. And when those 4 go hand in hand, you do tweaking on one, well, it's a cascading effect, right? Because they're all working in tandem. And it's right. We have to work at the body. We're a physical, a mental, and emotional, and spiritual vessel. And
the stress, the thing with stress is that it keeps the cortisol level. You know, we're running off our adrenal, our adrenaline, and we can actually keep going like that. But what's happening is we are squashing all our cells literally, and that's why I talk a lot about cellular practices for
Right.
cellular regeneration, to encourage our healthy cellular activity, to have a good functioning immune system. When we carry on with the stress and the high cortisol levels, that's going to, stop that. And that's where it's really important that we go forward into our second spring with good immune systems, the fluidity, and more knowledge about ourselves and our needs.
Beautiful. I love that how you say that. We go into our second spring. It's like a new awakening, another rebirthing. So you want to get the foundation right this time.
The thing that I found, I don't know if you sort of thought about this, but it really dawned on me as I started doing this work that, wow, we are different beings. We are something else going into in our second spring. I mean, it took from being a child to an adult. I kind of see it like that now. We go through this hormonal change from being a child to an adult, and look how different a child and an adult is. So I'm really sort of investigating and curious now as to kind of, right, okay, so we go for the fertile being into this. It takes 10 years. Like
Yes.
it takes 10 years. It's like, there's a similarity in there through puberty, right? This kind of really where we're going through this metamorphosis.
Yes.
And it's uncomfortable and it's horrible, it's confusing, and we become an adult, right, into
Yes.
that fertile life. So, and we go through this other difficult time again of this 10 years, and to become this other being. And that's where I'm really, really want to investigate. That's where we're working together, and that's where we're seeing each other. We've got to work together with this, that we have to. It's required. And I think human beings are meant to do that anyway.
Yes. True. Okay, this is fascinating. I'm a numbers person. With the chakras, it dawned on me, and I did see a reference to it in my book here. It's called the Chakra Bible. When we go through our 7 years, so 7 major chakras, and we go through 7 years, so 0 to 6, and so on and so on. So you've gone through the ladder of the 7, and within those 7 chakras progression, we have a 7-year period. So we have to sort of work our way. And then by the time we hit about, 42 to 49, we would be in the 7th chakra. So our divine higher self. And then that 7 years starts all over again when we hit about late 40s, going into our 50s. And of course, the root chakra, the first one, is all about laying the foundation. I was looking at it going, I wonder if it was divine intention for us to, if we were to look at it as chunks of, say, 7 years. And then it's all, again, it's foundational work right around the time where the average woman will be going through her menopausal experience. And then I thought, wow, no wonder things are starting to align, working with the chakras and allowing those chakras to flow, that energy system, as you spoke of, to flow naturally. And if I'm going to explore any more work, I would be starting to look into that element combined with the work of how the yoga and the breathing exercise goes in hand.
Yeah, I mean, the energy centers are so important to the work that I do. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I've found that I've really had to go back to my root, the foundations, the first 3. It makes absolute sense. And the root chakra is about our stability, it's about our security, it's about our networking, it's about family, and it's having a profound change at this time of life. You might have grown up kids, or be empty nested, or some women kind of literally they sort of burn the bridges behind them and walk off, and and that, whoa, oh my goodness, where am I now? And obviously then in the sacral as well, in the sacral chakra and in the pelvis, everything has changed again, and we get to know who am I, what is my true nature here and now. And the chakra system is really pivotal part, an important part of the work. I agree.
And what a lovely gift, Kim, that you are giving the listeners. We'll put that link in the show notes so they can access the summit. I agree. This is something that women should grab onto. It's priceless.
It is. Yeah, it really is.
And I always like to ask my guests what book they're reading now, or what is their all-time favorite, because I think there's always little gems of information that other listeners can hear about and say, then maybe that's a book I want to listen to. So tell me what you're reading, or what's your favorite?
God, I think with most of my favorite might be something from childhood, some kind of fantasy kind of book. What I'm reading now is Gabor Mate, The Myth of Normal, which this all ties into menopause, I'm afraid. So it's a little bit boring because I it's completely in with the same thing. But I just find he points out a lot about women's health and what happens at birth and why we end up in some of the situations that we end up in the world, why there's so much mental health. And so he does focus a lot on women's health, and I find that really useful in terms of what's happening through perimenopause. But my two favorite other books is The Red Moon Passage, Bonnie Horrigan, and the other one was Dance of the Dream, Jamie Sams. But I refer to them because I find that they've been so supportive again in terms of my journey through womanhood, and so inspiring. I really refer to to Native Americans, the First Nations, for guidance on climate and the planet.
Yes.
And so those teachings, I think, really support me. There's no kind of theorizing. They're there on the front line. Now, I have been saying this stuff for many years, and we need to get to listen to them now.
Yeah.
And I just love the stories of the journey of womanhood and how these different individuals in the Red Moon Passage, what they discovered and where they went to and where their journeys took them through this transitionary time. And I just think it makes it really mystical,
It
something lovely
does.
about it. You look at Clarissa Estes, or some of the newer books that are coming out at the moment, how this time is being explored. So important for women to read those things and those books and feel empowered and supported.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing. I'm definitely going to add those to the show notes. So listeners are looking for some recommendations of good books. These are 3 that you have mentioned. They're just beautiful. Thank you for making reference to the Indigenous population too, because it is true. They are our knowledge keepers and our way makers. They have this beautiful history of generations and generations of observing their environment around them and understanding how to give love and healing to the planet by just being observant in that way. And it's exactly what we're going through. Love and healing to our bodies. So we have to be more introspective and observe it, because women are transforming into becoming the knowledge keepers and the way makers for the generations behind us. So I think that was a nice tie it up in a bow, wrap it up nicely, what you had just shared with us. So thank you, Kim. Thank you for being here, for your presence, for your work. I look forward to hearing more. I'll follow you often. Tell our listeners where they can find you and subscribe to your newsletters and emails.
I've got a Facebook group. It's called Reclaiming Power Through Perimenopause and Beyond. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, but I'm not kind of too much on TikTok.
Me neither. I haven't figured it out.
I'm getting there, but yeah, so Instagram and Facebook, and obviously the website, and join the list. I'm just about to release a free ebook so that people can see a little bit, some real basic stuff on how some of the stuff works, and they can subscribe to that as well. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Kim. I'll get all that in the show notes. You've been a delight. I would be honored and delighted to bring you back again and just sharing these lovely stories, collaborating.
Well, likewise, thank you so much for the work you're doing.
So insightful. Wow, Kim, thank you. Here are my key takeaways from today's episode. Number 1, perimenopause is a transformative process that women will go through both physically and emotionally. Kim brings a positive light on what she describes as a second spring and advocates for seeing this stage not as a deficiency, but as an opportunity to enter into a different life phase that carries its own wisdom and influence. Number 2, our bodies are wise, but they remember, including stored trauma. Pain tends to surface as we undergo this transformative phase of life, and if we've not properly dealt with it previously, midlife will certainly bring it back to the forefront. Preparing the garden, if you will, for its second spring means tending to the obstacles that no longer serve us or interfere with our growth and our potential to truly enter into the individual we were always meant to be beyond menopause. Number 3, don't underestimate the benefits of adopting a holistic approach toward navigating perimenopause to address your physical health. Lifestyle modifications are a major part of it, but there's another important piece: and that is tending to the emotional and spiritual health through practices such as yoga therapy and embodiment practices. Number 4, the perspective on menopause is expanded to a global level, and collaboration among women can lead to a collective healing. Number 5, healing can also be self-activated by going inwards. There's an incredible correlation between perimenopause and the chakra system, and using the concept of our 7-year cycle, we can further explore the foundational work that us women need to undergo during our transition. Again, this is where the role of somatic embodiment practices and yoga therapy can come into play. And number 6, integrating more compassionate understanding and holistic approaches to women's health, particularly during the phases of our menopausal transition to prepare for the years beyond, are empowering for women. It helps us have more understanding, self-awareness, and ultimately allows us to embrace the physical, emotional, and spiritual changes we all will go through, rather than fearing them, as Kim astutely describes, pulling us back into the dark soul of the night. And my last takeaway, which is a special little treat for you, for my podcast listeners, you can get lifetime access to the summit for a special discounted price by using the code HealingPower39. Healing Power is all capital letters with the number 39. And to claim your code, visit Kim's website at Soul Led Centering Online. Do you need support through your menopause transition? A menopause doula can help. You can find me at mlcoaching.com. And help me help you by filling out a simple survey, which is linked in the show notes. Your input is greatly valued and will help in the design and creation of tools, courses, and other resources for my upcoming one-on-one and group coaching programs. Take the survey, it's linked in the show notes. Like, follow, share, subscribe. And if you are enjoying this podcast, I would love to hear from you. Consider leaving a review. Spreading the word will help broaden my audience reach and further impact more women as they experience a transition.